to our purpose for this experiment. If I could have your eyes on the board. Again, for an experimental process, we all have you always have a purpose. And what I'm trying to get at is using that sense of touch and feeling. When you were lifting the different woods, the samples of wood, you noticed that they had different weights to them. And that brings us to our purpose. Who can volunteer and read the purpose? Caitlin, nice and loud.
To determine the density of solid wood.
To determine the density of solid wood. When we were examining the woods, we noticed their colors. We noticed if they had a certain scent to them. We noticed that they're in a certain shape. Well, those are called what again? When you're examining solid matter, you're looking at the colors, the shapes, or if an object has a certain temperature, if it's hot, or if it's cold. What are those called? Just like when you're examining people, you're looking at those traits. When you're examining or looking at solid matter, you're looking at their properties. Everyone say properties.
Properties.
And thank you. I just want to reiterate, I'm so glad, even though you have gloves on, because we're using those as a safety measure. We're dealing with some wood and they're fibrous. You could have splinters. Thank you for just keeping your hands nicely on your desk until we actually have to handle the materials a little bit more closely. So I appreciate you keeping your hands free and just being patient until we get into the further into the experiment. All right, so again, density is one of those properties when you're talking about solid matter, but I forget. What is density? Density is a big word. It's a big word. What is density? I mean, there were more simple properties, color, shape, size, but density, that's tough. What's density? When you're talking about matter, Jada S., what's density?
Density is something.
What's density when you're referring to solid matter? Say it louder so Alex can hear you way in the back.
Density is the mass of something that is put into the solid.
Okay, you're close. It's the mass of an object, right? But then there's another component. Who can help her out? The mass of an object.
The mass of an object is how much
That's in a certain amount of space or volume. Very good. And what we said earlier, each one of these pieces of wood are cut to the same size, and so they're having the same volume. They're having the same volume. So I'm going to write the fraction. Density is the mass of an object taking up a certain amount of space, or its volume. So it's mass per volume. What's mass? What's mass? Kata.
Mass is how much matter is in a certain object.
Beautiful. Mass is how much matter is in an object. So each one of these pieces has its own mass. Okay? Mass is how much matter or stuff is tucked into a certain amount, is tucked into a certain object. And volume is the amount of space. Now, again, I want to stress, if all of these are cut to the same size or same amount of space, having the same volume, when we're thinking about density, having mass per volume, do we need to worry about volume right now?
No.
No. If they're all the same, it's a factor that we don't even need to consider when determining mass. Now, how do we know the mass of an object? Well, we've researched what does mass equal here on Earth. What does mass equal here on Earth? Donovan.
Mass equals the weight.
The weight. Very good. Caleb. Mass equals the weight. Just on Earth specifically, if you have a mass of 10 grams, you're also going to have a weight, which is, what is weight? I forget. What is weight? How do we determine weight? How do you know something weighs 30 pounds? How do you know something weighs 3 ounces? It's the what? Jonathan.
Force that gravity.
Can you say it louder so Joseph can hear you way in the back?
How much force is pushing down on an object?
How much force is being applied? How much gravitational force is being applied? So really quickly, if you have a mass of 20 kilograms, you're going to have a weight of 20 kilograms. If you have a mass of 3 ounces biak, you're going to have a weight of a 3 ounce force pushing against it. Very good. So if we know, thank you for your eyes, if we know mass equals weight here on Earth, can we find the weight of these pieces of wood?
Yes.
Sure. Whenever you measure, you need to use some type of what?
Unit.
And we have a tool on our table. Who can raise their hand and tell me, what is this tool called? What is this tool? Nehemiah, what is this? What is this? It's a scale. And on this scale, we're going to use a scale to measure weight, the weight. And on this scale, we have units, and we have already practiced using this particular unit. And what is the unit called? To measure the weight of something, what is the unit that we have practiced with before? Ounces. We're going to use ounces. All right? And in an experiment, thank you for your eyes again. So we've gone over the purpose, the research, how we researched. We definitely explore the properties of solid matter. We've talked about the density, the weight, the mass, and the volume. We're familiar. And in any experiment, you have a hypothesis, and you're going to test it. That's when you predict and test the densities. You have already, because you're familiar with these samples of wood, Joseph, you have predicted which samples you think are going to have or which sample would have the greatest density and which sample would have the lowest density. Very good. So you have already made your predictions, and they are on your data sheet. Well, now we're going to get to the bulk of the experiment and test these, and then we're going to discuss our findings. Now, everyone is in your group. You have your materials. Your equipment manager has brought over your materials. Your equipment manager also gave you gloves, because in any science experiment, we need to be safe, and so we don't want to get any splinters from these fibrous pieces of wood. And when I designate your position, that's the rotation that you will go in when starting to weigh these weights. When we weigh these weights, and if the weight equals mass, we can definitely determine the density of each one of these pieces of wood. That's our purpose. All right, everyone sit up straight. You have your gloves on. The scales are in place. Your samples are in front of you. So when I give you your positions, you may start. And everyone has a role. We have an equipment manager. Then the scale reader is going to read how many ounces that particular sample of wood weighs.
And the verifier is going to check if it's right or not.
The verifier does exactly that. The verifier double checks to make sure those are the ounces, those are the ounces read and are accurate. And then all of you participate in the role of a data recorder, and you will record the ounces. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Last.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you're the person handling the wood, remember, do not pick it up until everyone. Don't take it off the scale until everyone has written your recordings. You may begin.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, 4. You may begin. Do the dots first. Remember? The ones with the dots first. Do the ones with the dots first. 1.
I can't see.
It is 7 ounces.
Only the dots first. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ones with the dots first. Let's see. Is that the
7.
5 ounces. 7.5. You got 7.5 ounces. Just gonna load it.
Remember, don't take them off.
Number 8. We'll do the ones with the dots first.
Yeah. So number 8, the blood.
7.5 ounces.
Very good. Verifier, did you say 7.5 ounces?
Yeah.
Is that what it read? Okay. So that was number 8.
Okay, now
Just
it is
wait.
Careful. 7.5.
everybody done?
7.5. He's got it. Just more than 7, not quite 8. You need half after the 7. No, just squeeze it in.
Is everybody done?
Yes. It's your turn.
Yeah, have you done 8?
Yeah, I'm done. Nehemiah,
You sure?
you're up.
Sure.
You're up, Nehemiah.
Number 9. Then Biak, you're number 10. Then Darla, you're number 11. So 8 is... No, it's 8.5 ounces. I'm pretty sure because it looks like that.
6 ounces. No,
Is it
that's
8.5
8.
ounces?
8 exactly.
It's 8.5 ounces. Well, they keep forgetting to put ounces.
No, if it's in a half, I'll be right here. It looks mostly close to 6. Look at that little
Darn, it's right there. It's
mostly
I want to make sure everybody has done it. And everybody does number 9 boycott.
But it's
Jonathan's not done.
But since there's no worries, I'm tired of my hand.
The ounces are on the inside, remember?
What you have to do is spoon ounces.
You're right, that is the middle. So if it's halfway between, kind of like the, don't take it off yet, he hasn't written down his recordings, remember? Between the 5 and the 6.
Okay. Okay, is everybody done?
Everybody
Everybody
have to,
We have to do number 10.
sometimes if we're not quite sure of the reading, we have to go back and look. That's the whole point, double check. That's the whole point of double checking.
I'm supposed to read it.
Thank you for
I'm supposed to read
asking,
it.
is everyone recorded?
It is 9.5. It is 9 ounces. Actually on the line. Just gonna wait. Yep. Wait for Joshua.
Gently. Oh, that's
6 ounces.
Has everybody done number
very
10?
good.
Yeah, take number 10 now. Now then, now.
You're 7. Now you're getting it. Good job.
No, pass it to me, and I put it on.
Now to the number 11.
Everyone recorded.
Number 11.
We're doing pretty good.
I think we're actually improving. It is 10.5 ounces.
That's a large amount.
Oh, I think I might be right. Oh,
Oh, wait, let me see. I need to check.
no. It's at 10.5. Because it's not directly on the 10, it's just close to the 10.
That is more closer to the 11.
Donovan, it was there. It's right
Actually,
here.
sorry. It's between the, where is it? Sorry.
10 and 11. It's
So
between the
it's
10.
between the 10 and the 11?
It's
What would
closer to the
would it
10.
be?
It's closer to the 10.
I would look at that a
No,
little bit
it's
more
in the
closely.
middle, actually.
What do you think, Nehemiah?
It's in the middle, actually.
Between the 10 and the 11. So what would it be? It's past the 10. It would be 10 and a half. 10 and a
We're just gonna wait until
Wait until, that's what you say to your group members. Has everyone recorded their data? Say that to them.
everybody does. Just gonna make sure. Have you done it? Okay, so they got that covered. Yeah, have you done it? Okay, everything's covered. Jonathan, take it off. Just to the other side.
Is it verified?
Let's do number 1. Are you ready to do number 1? It weighs 1 ounce. Weighs 1 ounce.
1 ounce.